All right, we are back for another edition of the Astro Weather. I am Robert Phoenix, your Astro Weatherman, and I am joined by the Astro Weather cat, Miss Peaches. Want to get in on the action today, and it's always a sunny day when there's peaches. Am I right? Some people don't like peaches. I like a good peach myself. And here in Texas, we are known for peaches, believe it or not. Right here in the hill country, which is why Peaches got her name, because she's a hill country peach. What is this on your back? Looks like some dried hair or something. Anyway, what's going on, peeps? Folkorama. Kind of getting over a little bit of a bug. I had a little bit of a buggy wuggy yesterday, and I don't know if you noticed it. I was kind of coughing a little bit. Even I began to notice it. So I hit hard with the protocol last night. Got some early sleep. Taking a little vitamin here for the old buggy wuggy, and kind of rebounding. That's where I'm at. Michael Sisternino in the house. What's going on, brother? Sigurd, not all synchronicities and convergences are created equal. This seems to be a key moment to embrace your potential without being led astray. That's a powerful comment. You're right. They're not created equal. Just try living your life based on signs, signifiers, and symbols. And just live your life completely by that, and watch how quickly it goes out of control. I kind of did that for a while, and you get lost. You get lost in a different kind of matrix. So you do have to be selective about your interpretation of the paranormal or the high strange, right? You have to be kind of selective about it. Scott Jerzik's here. Hi, Scott. Janine, PMSO. What's happening? The universe has our back. And in that space, when we walk safely in surety, I'm not going to get into an early morning debate here, but I'm kind of in the Sigurd camp on this, that not all synchronicities are created equal, and that some have perhaps more important gravity than others. I'm a big discernment guy, and even synchronicities need a little bit of discerning. Queen Lisa's here. What's happening, Queen Lisa? Lily Lou, artist here. It's Jupiter Day. We're glad you're here with us. The always charming, effervescent Susie G. Misbehaving too. Sue Leonard. Hi, Sue. Nora Rashid, the Queen of Speed. Right next to Mad Maxine, Lynette Jardine. It is poetry. And there she is, the lovely and talented one, saving Austin one tooth at a time. It's kind of a Charlie's Angels trifecta there. Let's see what we got. Who else? Christina Jerzik, Moonsprout. Who else? Big Dave Sullivan, Susan. Healing Heart Rosie, driving home. Healing Heart Rosie, the graveyard shifts. Very impressive. Woke on bake time. Okay. Neil, I'll take your word for it. Sandra D. Hi, Sandra. Lena Winkler, good morning to you. It is a peachy day. There he is, Tom Jordan. My man, Ryan. Moira in NYC. Yes, you can become a locals part 2 for 2025. And don't forget that's on Saturday. And don't forget the Astrological extravaganza on Sunday night. Myself, David, Evan, and Mario from Symbolic Studies. We're going to be calling his number to come off the bench and get into some Aquarian symbolism, I got to tell you, I think it's going to be a great show. This is you're going to get probably about 3.5 hours of just condensed, nutrient-rich, hyper-connected perspective, and from 4 people who are linked together via sort of esotericism and symbolism, but all quite different in many ways in their approach. So be with us here on Sunday night. Whoa. On Friday, tomorrow, it is the return of Dr. Shiva. And I'm really looking forward to this. I've already got the show up. The thumbnail is there. And you can see the theme in the thumbnail. It is basically Shiva in the foreground. And then in the background, there's a much smaller picture of Vivek Ramaswamy and a bunch of snakes. And the last time Shiva was on the show, he talked about Vivek the snake. And I'm like, man, after this H1B thing, I got to get Shiva on the show to basically rake Vivek over the coals, because he dropped his mask and he was revealing to all of us the true nature of Vivek Ramaswamy. So, and and I'm sure Dr. Shiva will have plenty to say about many other topics as well. So looking forward to that. Join us here Friday, tomorrow, 12 noon, the return of Dr. Shiva. Night's Light is here. Jackie Delario, Alyssa Ayers. Hi, Alyssa. James Morgan. I have a nice juicy one with a little bit of fuzz on it. You guys are funny. Very funny. Let's see. Soul Travelers here. Josie's Jazzy Junk. Claire. Hi, Claire. It's Liddy Lou's anniversary. Congratulations. What that sports astrologer you were telling me about a while back, I can't remember his name. Susie G. Oh. Susie G. Cosmic Triggered into Oblivion. Of course, that's a reference to Robert Anton Wilson, the Mage of Discordia. Yes, if you're interested in reading, right there. There you go. Yes, Mark Matheny is a friend of the show. I had Mark on many times, and he was also on the Serious Sports. So good dude, really good dude. Liddy Lou, yes, my sinus is triggered. Yeah, I got hit with a little something. Kelly B's here, Penny's here. Some synchronicities are path to hell. Penny, you're right about that. I think Secret is over the target. They're not all created equal, in that you got to use discernment in all things, including synchronicities. Lamb Chop 641. Howdy, Lamb Chop. Let's see. Heather Botkins here. Sweet Woodruff from Plano. Hi, Sweet. Sally Hiller. Will it be here on Rumble? It'll be here on YouTube. It'll be here. We want as many eyeballs as we can get on Vivek burning down the house. Valeria Rubens. Greetings. Will serious sports return? Not this year. Not this year. Kind of had a blowout. The tire blew out. I was doing this thing with Osiris, and then I think he went to like Vietnam or Thailand or someplace like that. And I have not heard from him for a long time. I think maybe it might have been like after one of the last shows we did, he told me he was getting ready to leave for the South Pacific, and then that was it. He was gone. So I'm just going to put it in we're going to put it in the garage for the rest of. Maybe we'll fire it back up again, and I don't know, late summer of next year. I think that if they're it's the real sports that are happening, right, they're out there in the world. You got the LA Fire Olympics. You know, how fast can you empty your house with a moment's notice? Who's got the world record in that? What's the over under? Can you imagine that? Like the commentary for that? Well, Jim, it looks like that house is well on its way to burning to a crisp. I wonder how long it's going to take the residents to get all of their most precious life belongings out of there. Well, Bob, based on the relative youth and shape of the people that own that house, I'm giving them about 2.5 minutes. And I think they'll get in and they'll get out. They'll get some family pictures, a few heirlooms, maybe their computer, and who knows what else. But I think they've got roughly 2.5 minutes to get in there, get out before that roof collapses. All right, Jim, they're on the clock right now. Let's see how long it's going to take them to get in and get out and get those precious family heirlooms and belongings. And so then you bet the over under. Oh, I'm going under. I'm going under. I think they got 2 minutes in that place. And of course, if you go the over, well, you're betting on disaster. So yeah, we could have the fire Olympics, and it could extend into even like the fire response team, right? It could be something like, Jim, we still haven't seen any first responders here. How long do you think it's going to take for them to get to this part of the neighborhood? I don't know, Bob. It's been touch and go lately. They seem to be undermanned and overmatched. And I think that the relative response time has been at least over 25 minutes for any structure that they want to bring some relief to. So I don't know. I'd be very well pressed to believe that anybody's going to show up here in the next 10 minutes. Okay, Jim. Well, we've got our cameras on this block of Santa Monica, and if they're going to be coming back here, we'll bring you back to the action. But the over under at this point is at least 25 minutes. There you go. There's your new serious sports. It's all based on disaster. All right. I'm sorry. A little dark humor is, I think, is important. Let's see. Anybody else? Maybe God is angry at Babylon, although I think they geoengineered it for 15-minute cities. You know, this is the thing that's really interesting about reality. I'm going to throw this up here, my account. There you go. Oh, and then I got to put Siegert's other Fire Olympics event up here. Sometimes things can be, sometimes things aren't mutually exclusive. Like there could be a divine agenda at work and working through people that aren't the best people. It's weird, right? It's really weird. But you know, I've actually given this some thought. My account 681, and of course, it's the 400-meter lunar relay. Oh, yes, who's gonna win in this event? We have the lunar relay team from Venezuela. You know, they're very experienced at this. They've been performing a number of lootings throughout America over the past year, so they're well aware of the law enforcement terrain. We're just wondering where they are of the local terrain. It's pretty hilly in some parts of Palisades Park. So we're going to see how the Venezuelan lunar relay team can navigate that. Of course, they're up against the Colombian lunar relay team, which, you know, they're very well versed in high altitude and small streets. So I think that the Colombians are probably the favorite. Now, the dark horse out of all this is the meth relay team, because, you know, they're speeding. And in the Fire Olympics, drugs are allowable. So the meth lunar relay team will be something to watch. Although at some point, somewhere along the way, somebody may want to start another fire. So that could be a real problem for the meth 400 lunar relay team. There you go. Truly the postmodern pentathlon. They should move that's right. The Olympics are going to be in LA, aren't they? They're definitely going to be in LA. All right. Dark humor is a necessity to go. You'll go nuts. Yeah, I agree. And I have never, ever, ever. Hi, Catherine. I have never, ever resisted a good dark humor moment. Radio flyer bobsled downhill. Now that'd be the shopping cart bobsled. You got the right idea, Rich. You got the wrong. You got the wrong mode of transport. The shopping cart, very big on the streets of LA. Gallows humor keeps you from the noose. I like that. I guess Russia is boycotting those too. That's funny. Oh my God. Shades of 1980. All right. Let's get into the weather. Enough of this falderall. Yeah, well, they did that. They did. That's right. They boycotted the Olympics in '84, and that was kind of the last time the Russians were worth anything Olympic wise, right? Because for a while, with all their sports medicine and shit, they ruled the day. Also, they had a lot of help from the International Olympic Committee, the IOC. All right. We're at the tail end of this moon in Leo. I hope everybody had a day of creative disruption. Yeah, I had it. You know what I had yesterday? This was really interesting. I got a phone call. I was with a client, and I got a phone call from my guy Bobby, the great Bobby Jacks, down at the storage here in Kerrville, where I have one of my cars stored. And Bobby says, "Hey, Robert, there's a guy here who wants to buy your truck." And my truck isn't even there anymore. Like, it hasn't been down at his place to be sold for a long time. I don't even have a for sale sign on it. However, I did post it on Facebook Marketplace. And so this guy's calling me, and he wants to come look at the truck. And he's from San Antonio. And eventually I finish with my client, and I meet him out there. And he's a cool guy, whatever. And at the end, he tells me how he found the truck, because I didn't respond to him on Facebook. And he actually worked off of pictures and was using the pictures that were available from the truck, and I guess some other stuff, maybe from my account. And he geolocated the last place I had the truck, which was at Bobby's storage space, storage facility here. And he actually went to Fredericksburg first, because there was, I guess, some kind of a digital imprint out there somewhere of my truck being in Fredericksburg, because that's where I lived. And it's kind of scary in some ways that this guy was able to track me down just by matching up photos from Facebook with Google Photos and sort of Google history. It's like, whoa, it's kind of rando and weird, right? And that was with my home, which is the moon, and this Uranus grid. It was very disruptive. Because, I mean, really, literally disruptive. He must have called me twice while I was in this session with a client. It was literally disruptive. But I wound up selling the truck, and I listed it for $3,500. He said, "Can I give you $3,000?" And I'm like, you know what? After going through all that effort and work and being able to piece all that together, you earned that discount. Yeah, I'll give it to you for $3,000. So out of the blue, I sold one of my vehicles, which was great. So, sometimes Moon Uranus squares work in your favor. Today we got a yod with the sun and Neptune. It's fleeting. It is a fleeting yod. This moon's going to go into Virgo later today. So we start off with sort of the last degrees of joviality, and all of a sudden we get much more critical as the day moves on. And when you get a Pluto in conjunct with the moon, especially at like say 0 Virgo, you're going to get almost neurotic intensity, right? So there's this push me pull you with, man, just kind of let it go, right? That's Neptune, let it go. You can catch up with it later. It's okay, a little manana. But then you get Pluto, and it's just like there's this thing in the back of your brain. So you got to do this, 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 you got to do this. And the moon in Virgo is, it's nervous. It's almost kind of mousy, right? So it's like mousy nervous. Moon in Virgo. If you have a moon in Virgo, I'm sorry, it's not a personal affront, but it just is, right? It's got to do something. Got to do something. Got to do something. So there's this urge to create order today as we move into this moon in Virgo, and there's a necessity in some ways with Pluto. Like Pluto is saying, you better create some fucking order, or it could be more heavy for you if you don't now. And Neptune is like, well, I'll do it tomorrow. So, there's that wonderful saying, don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. And I would also say, give in to the neuroses, right? Like, follow it. It's okay. It's okay. This is not a laissez-faire moon. This is like, yeah, I know I got to get it done. I can't put it off anymore. So that also will extend into your living space as well. As we are witnessing this, we would think it's a once in a lifetime tragedy in Los Angeles, but I'm not so sure. Pluto and Aquarius is just hit the horizon here, and we can say, oh, this it's like North Carolina. Oh my God, that's a once in a lifetime storm and tragedy. And then a few months later, oh my God, LA, once in a lifetime firestorm and tragedy. I don't know if that's really the case. We're already up now with like 2 once in a lifetimes. So I think this whole idea around insurance is a big deal. And it sent a lot of people scrambling to look at their policies and to make sure that they're covered to the extent in which they can be covered. I mean, there's that, right? That's a big part of it. But I think also people are, especially with this moon going into Virgo, it's like, how safe are we? That's really the big issue here. How safe is the home in general? There's also some really weird work stuff going on in the world right now. And Virgo represents, of course, work, service, duty, doing something every day. And there's this weird, it was like, you get these, here's what happens. You get these page-shilly Republican, slightly MAGA, conservative influencers. And they will kind of morally shame people in a particular direction. I'll give you an example. I forget who it was. It wasn't Robbie Starbuck, but it was somebody like that. And they were, Matt Walsh is infamous for this. Although sometimes he's over the target, other times he's just poking the bear. But it's like, oh, I can't believe. This guy was like, oh, I can't believe that there aren't jobs out there for Americans that are willing to work. You could get a job driving for UPS and FedEx, or you could start off as a manager at Chick-fil-A and make $45,000 a year, and you could be making $100,000 a year in 3 years. Like, so these are like the great employment options now. Well, first of all, UPS, you're going to be on a list for a very long time. I've heard that some of these lists are up to 5 years, and you can get calls from the list for holiday relief. Like, so UPS always hires extra drivers during the holiday, and they drive around and they drop stuff off. I almost did that one time. I should have done it. Instead, I took a different job. It was horrible. Or if there's, another kind of a rush season. So you can get some spot work on the list, but eventually getting to the top of the list so that you get a full-time driver's job at UPS, which is better than FedEx. Like, FedEx is they're not, the worst is Amazon, right? But Amazon now outsources to the post office and shit. So the whole idea that you can become a UPS driver and just bank on that, like, that's a good job. No, it's much more difficult to get than you think. And not everybody wants to be a fucking manager at a fast food restaurant. Right? Nobody is like, yeah, hey, it's $100,000 a year, but I got to manage a bunch of people that don't really want to be there. I have to deal with all these problems in my off time, but that's okay. I mean, for some people, maybe that's a fit, right? Maybe that's a fit. But even if you get to that managerial position, there's no guarantee you will stay there. There could be cost-cutting measures. There could be politics within that particular franchise, and it does happen. And then the next thing you know, you're kind of back out on the streets again. So this whole employment thing is also part of this this moon in Virgo. I think there's going to be Biden or whoever's running the program, the gift that keeps on giving. Two things have happened just over the course of the last, I think, 48 hours. They made a major announcement on nicotine, which gets into Virgo and the moon in Virgo and health. They're basically mandating that cigarette and vape manufacturers cut back on the available nicotine in their products. Why are they doing this? It's not because they want us to be healthy. We saw the response during COVID. Really, that's the COVID response that takes us in the opposite direction. They figured out that these things inside the body, as a result of the thing you put in your body, do not replicate when nicotine is present. So that's happened. Also, they've changed some of the rules for independent contractors. Again, I don't have all the information. It came across my screen, which means that it messes with the gig economy, which is about the only thing left for Americans outside of working for $16 an hour at a fast food restaurant, if you're not passed by somebody who is from another country, right? So this moon in Virgo really ties into all of these issues. This is from a collective level that I'm talking about. And the Pluto in conjunct are people realizing this is not a solution. And as we move into a time of hyper-acceleration with robotics and with AI and all the things that are going to displace even the H-1B workers, this is my sense here with this moon. Like, there's this existential kind of dread brewing back here where people are, they're even me as an astrologer, some of the AI astrological programs are very sophisticated, and you wouldn't know if they were a human or not, especially in the written form. So we're all kind of teetering sort of on the edge of obsolescence, right? And to me, that's that Pluto in conjunct with the moon. Now, Neptune, on the other hand, says, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Everything will be okay, right? God has a plan. And Pluto is the devil, and it's shaking your cage. And it's like, you better wake up. You better wake up. Don't worry about it. God has a plan. Better wake up. Don't worry about it. Better wake up. Right. And so this is the theme here for moving into this morning, this afternoon, this evening, if you're in another part of the world. It is not an easy moon. Catch the last degrees of the Leo moon, like the last rays of sun for the next 48 hours, right? And then even the last remnants of the square, although when it does move into Virgo early degrees, it'll still square Uranus. Nervous. There's a lot of nervous energy. Lot of nervous energy, you know. Got to work it out. Work it out. We're almost out of Capricorn. Look at this. 26 degrees. We're in the final days. Yes. And then on the 20th, the sun moves into Aquarius and conjuncts Pluto, and Donald J. Trump theoretically becomes president of the United States of America. And there could be a gauntlet. There could be a gauntlet during that during that whole ceremony between now and then. What else do we have here? Venus is getting a little closer, a little tighter to Saturn. Commit shit or get off the pot. That's where we're headed. Over here, Jupiter. Temptation, temptation, temptation. Commit shit, get off the pot. Temptation, temptation, temptation. Yeah, there's a theme there. There is definitely a theme there. Communication can help. Communication can help. Mercury sextiling here. Talk about it. Talk it out. Talk it over. It's not a bad thing if you can do it. There's a risk. There's always a risk with Chiron. Mercury coming in here, squaring Chiron. Geez, if I bring this up, what's going to happen? What's the domino effect here? Because there will be a domino effect. But it's better to talk about it than to experience the other reality, which is to be in denial and not talk about it and let things sort of pile up. Not sure how we're going to be. I don't know if Aquarius will support that. I don't think it'll support that. Because Aquarius is just so disruptive, right? And Pluto is transformational. So this is transformationally disruptive. I believe that all areas in our of our lives are going to be undergoing revolutionary change. Not just what's happening out there in the world. And, you know, Pluto and Aquarius is just getting cooking. So it doesn't just, it's not just a collective sort of experience, but no, it impacts each and every one of our lives. We're all engaged in our personal revolution, you know, and that can take many shapes or forms, right? Do you want to overthrow laziness and sloth? Do you want to, you know, it's like what part of your calcified conditioning and programming do you want to overthrow and have a revolutionary relationship with that part of your life? It can happen. So I'm working on the health thing, and next week I start with my secret weapon, my trainer, and I'm really looking forward to that. So, you know, what areas of your life can you overthrow the tyrants of what's the word I'm looking for? The tyrants of complacency. You know, and I've got more, you know, it's like I want to get away from StreamYard. And I found this other service that can do what StreamYard does. It's cheaper. It also allows me to stream off of my website. And it's like, well, yeah, you're going to change it? You got to change it. If you're serious, right? That's part of the revolution. So before we can have a revolution out here, the revolution starts within. What else do we have here? And yeah, it's great, right? The sun is trining Uranus. Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius. So you can make a concerted effort to overthrow the tyrant of complacency in your life today. Make sure you have a manifesto, though, before you do that. It always helps to have a manifesto, just in case you catch yourself overthrowing your own complacent tyrant. And he said, well, I've got the manifesto. This is why I'm doing this. Oh, okay. As long as you have the manifesto, you're good. Mars still going retrograde here. And will be going retrograde until February 28th. And it's not a bad time, again, to retreat. It's not a bad time to retreat. We're in the opposition with the sun. Capricorn is all about just get it done, get it done, get it done, get it done. Have a goal, get it done. And Mars retrograde is, well, yeah, we can get it done, but maybe there are steps to take in order to do that. Even when you decide to have a revolution with your own tyrant of complacency, Mars retrograde, first of all, you need to understand what you're doing and how you're going to attack it. Muammar Gaddafi is a very interesting guy, and his rise to power was not meteoric. It was very well planned out. Like, he was not happy with the existing government, which was kind of a leave behind from, I believe, the Italians in Libya. And it was one of their kind of puppets that they left behind. And he didn't, it was not a great deal. And Gaddafi was planning. He was planning that this is what he wanted to do. He wanted to overthrow the fucking government. And so he would get together with like-minded people who were students at the time, and they would meet and they planned this shit out. And they started to acquire firearms and store them in different places. And when the time came, they were armed and ready to go, and they did it. And it wasn't. They made a lot of mistakes and errors, but they had enough planning and enough tools in the shed to do it, right? So this is the Mars retrograde. I'm using the Gaddafi model. How many astrologers would talk about Gaddafi and Mars retrograde as a strategy to change your life? Overthrow the complacent tyrant that's running your banana republic. This is what I'm talking about. So you gotta look with this Mars retrograde. Like, what do I need to do in order to do this? Like, what do I need to do? Where are my weak spots? Where am I vulnerable? What do I need to build up? What do I need to get rid of? That's the thing with Mars and Cancer. It doesn't like, or just Cancer in general, it doesn't like to let go of things. And the retrograde gets you to think about, what do I need to let go of? How do I kind of lighten this so I can attack the problem? Especially when Mars goes forward in Cancer, that's when you really attack the problem. Now you're kind of doing an inventory and figuring out, what needs to go or what needs to change. But you have to be consistent about it. I think I brought this up yesterday, but the saying for Mars retrograde would be something like, when a fisherman cannot go out to fish, he mends his nets. So this is a kind of a net mending time, if you know what I mean. Okay, let's get into our star of the day. Let me see. We got to get the banner up here. Okay. All right. Let me load this. All right. Let me come back here and fire up the page. Today's star of the day is Kenneth Warren. And before I talk about Kenneth and his chart, let me just talk about Chris and his product. So True Hemp Science is by far one of the best sources for CBD, CBGA, THC-derived products. There are so many options for you to go out and purchase products that are like this, but there are no products like this because, first of all, everything he gets is organically sourced. That means he's starting from the best ingredients. There's no compromise. There's no spray, right? These are organic strands of hemp where he can find them from growers that he has long-standing relationships with. That's where it all starts. And then it goes into his manufacturing process, which is extremely clean and almost alchemical. He's a bit of a wizard in the CBD lab. So if you spend $100 or more and you type in 15MINS, you will get the goodie bag, which means you're going to get an order on top of an order. $150 or more gets you free shipping, and there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you go to ths.com, you can make an appointment and talk to somebody there about which product suits your needs the best. Okay. Who is Kenneth Warren? Kenneth Warren was a friend of mine. He was also a student of mine. And Kenneth met me through my website when I was writing. I used to do a lot of writing, which I don't do a lot of anymore. And I always enjoyed writing as kind of a expression of the hyper real. And so Kenneth really liked my writing, and he listened to my shows. And by day, Kenneth was the head librarian at the Lakewood Library, which is a suburb of Cleveland. And there's a whole story that goes along with him being that librarian. But by night, Kenneth was a poet and a writer and had a completely, like, I would say almost kind of punk rock lifestyle that he was like, he was almost leading this double life in some ways because he didn't want anybody to know that he was this mad creative genius. And he posted a newsletter that that he worked on all the time, and he was involved with a group of poets and artists in the Lakewood area. So Kenneth kind of introduced himself to me when he wrote this book called Captain Poetry Sucker Punch, A Guide to the Homeric Punk Hole, 1980 to 2012. And Andre Kondrescu, who has been a contributor of NPR, became a huge fan of Kenneth's because he was reading his criticism of poets and poetry. And he thought, who is this guy? Where is he? And he was stunned to find that he lived in Lakewood, Ohio, and was a librarian. And he thought that he probably worked for one of the major lit magazines in New York City. That's how talented Kenneth was. And his this is an incredible. It's also kind of a love poem to the Cleveland area. There's a lot of Cleveland references. Like section 3 is alchemical precision. Like that's a title of the book or a chapter. It's just really, really incredible. Peter Orlovsky, experienced Buddhist sitter. Kerouac's Heavy Load. There's all, but it's not just the criticism. House Organ was his newsletter that he wrote. Section 2, Archaic Sexuality. like Kenneth had one of these minds that was just such a great dot connector. And he visited me in Austin at least 3 times. And I always enjoyed his company. And as a student of astrology, he was able to really lock into sort of the mythopoetic potential of astrology coming from the world of poetry. He was able to describe certain aspects like the Neptune opposition to any planet. And, and in as much as I would tell him about these aspects and how they would look and feel and form, Kenneth would add his own language. And I would sit there and I'm taking notes like, oh man, that's good. I like that. Right. I mean, that's how talented of a man he was. Let's get into his chart a little bit. One of the things that he did is he was a librarian, the head librarian at the Lakewood Library, again, just on the outskirts, a suburb of Cleveland. And I tend to think libraries are kind of 11th house spaces. Like it's where groups of people get together, and you could have inside of there, you can have a reading circle, or, you know what I mean? You could have like a book of the month club, and the book of the month club people meet at a portion of the library. So I think libraries are somewhere in that 11th house. It's a public space, right? And the 11th house tends to be more public. And the 5th house tends to be a bit more private. So he has Jupiter up in the 11th house. And Kenneth also had a large number of friends inside of the literary, art, poetry, Cleveland, musical, even punk rock circle. So he was pretty popular in that regard. But his time at the Lakewood Library was quite interesting. And one of the things that I was able to kind of piece together was that Kenneth wanted to turn the Lakewood Library into this repository of knowledge. Like whatever was there, the books that they purchased, it was like he wanted it to be Cleveland's library at Alexandria. And a lot of those books were going to come from the classical literary world, right? But there were books even beyond that he's like, this is going to be part of the canon. And so he was in charge of physically rebuilding the library into something that would, kind of last much longer than, of course, his tenure. And when he was doing all of this, there were people, and there was this woman, I remember her name, Gloria. And I actually knew Gloria from a different, life is weird, right? From a different angle, but she was there in Cleveland. And her and other people were protesting what Kenneth was doing with the library because it was not culturally sensitive, right? They were even back then, like this is probably, I don't know, like the early 2010s. Even back then they're protesting and saying, well, your library and everything in there has to be diverse. And he dug his heels in the ground. He's like, no. I'm the head of the stinking library. He was a Capricorn. I'm the head of the library, and we're not going in that direction. That to me, that's his Jupiter and Taurus, which is fixed, right? And it's visionary. I have a vision for this public space. And it's connected to Mercury in his chart, and Mercury in Capricorn. And he has this Mercury Chiron conjunction. So I think that even though he was built of tough stuff, I think, Kenneth was very sensitive in a lot of ways. He's a Cancer rising. Again, kind of retiring. There's pictures of him in a suit at the Lakewood Public Library. And here, he looks, very kind of post-punk, avant-garde, bohemian. And so you get this with Cancer rising, but then you run into Uranus in his first house. And that's where you can tell you're dealing with a different cat. you're just dealing with somebody different. And he's got the true node in Aquarius. And honestly, that's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to take the road less traveled. And even here in the 8th house, the secret life of Kenneth Warren. Like, a lot of people didn't know that this guy was probably one of the best literary critics in America, an incredible writer in and of his own scope and ability. Nobody knew that, right? And it's all 8th house stuff. And even Gemini over here, his series in the 12th house, even over there, that's like a secret life, like nurturing the word or nurturing communication through Gemini. And even here, it's retrograde. And the local area was really important for Kenneth, and that's the 3rd house. So Pluto, again, you get into some library territory with Pluto with the 3rd house. It's local. It contains books, communication, and Kenneth had very, very clear ideas about, what that should look like and how it could sort of live beyond his own life. He is also very much tied into Cleveland poets like Ed Dorn, Robert Duncan. He was very much connected to bands like Devo. Like, being a part of Ohio was really important to Kenneth, and those sort of deep roots where he's able to connect all these different dots and have a much larger picture. He had this Venus-Mars conjunction in his chart, and he was a romantic. Like, Kenneth was really one of the reasons why he came to Austin was not just to hang out with me, but there was a woman that he was smitten with, and he was in a lot of ways as dark of a Capricorn as he might appear. Kenneth was kind of a hopeless romantic. And not hopeless, but he was definitely a guy when he was in love. He would give into the feeling of it, right? He would dive in, and there were conditions around this relationship with this woman that weren't normal. They weren't like, what's the word I'm looking for? They weren't status quo. Like, he had to deal with limiting conditions and on her terms. And he was willing to do that, right? Because he had this Venus-Uranus trine, which, even though the relationship was kind of outside the box, he could live with it. And he could kind of live with it a bit at a distance. Down here in the 4th house, we encounter Saturn and Neptune. And I think that this is where ultimately Kenneth meets his demise. He winds up dying of a heart attack, and of course the 5th house rules Leo. And there's more here with Neptune and Saturn, of course, squaring his sun, squaring Mercury, and Capricorn is tough, man. These are tough planets, and so dealing with vulnerability, taking on a leadership position in the library, and with Neptune there again, suffering the slings and arrows of the beginning of the woke and diversity movement while he was doing this, I think was much more painful than he let on. So Kenneth was a really, really interesting guy. But again, a lot of his persona is completely occulted. And people just didn't really know kind of what he did once he punched the clock. And once he punched the clock, he was this literary force. Now, Kenneth passed away in 2015. And the conditions of his passing were, for me, quite bizarre. And again, with this in conjunct with Uranus and the moon, and this kind of weird sort of sudden change in like his status was quite alarming. So we were supposed to have I was teaching him astrology, and we were supposed to have a session, and I'm trying to reschedule it because there was something going on, and I think I might have been texting him, or emailing him, I forget which, and I got the strangest message from him, and I'd never heard him like this before. He sounded hurried, flustered, worried. Not many sentences, brief, maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3. And it was like, this is not like Kenneth. And so, of course, my mind was to check in on him like a day or 2 later. He mentioned that he was, I think, off to the doctor or off to the hospital or something. So 2 days later, I'm on Town Lake in Austin with my son, and I'm kayaking. He's paddleboarding, and I brought my cell phone out to the lake with me, and so I'm out there, and I get a phone call from Kenneth's son to tell me that Kenneth had passed away, and I started to tear up, obviously, because this guy was my friend as well as a student. And the weirdest thing happened. There was this duck that attached itself to us as we paddled down towards this bridge. And the symbolism of the bridge is not lost upon me. I believe it's maybe the First Street Bridge, if I'm not mistaken. It's either First or Congress, one of the two. I think it's First. Anyway, we're paddling towards this bridge, and this duck is swimming with us the entire time. Like he's attached itself to us. And it was the oddest thing. He kind of freaked my son out a little bit, and then we would get ahead. All of a sudden, he'd flap his wings and then get back into the water and then, paddle with us, right? With his little feet, little web feet. And then we got to the bridge, and then we were under the bridge. We kind of turned around, and then the duck kept going. And so I looked up like duck and goose symbolism, and they're symbols of the travel and migration to the afterlife. And it was such a bizarre moment, I don't know if that was Kenneth or not, but it was certainly something on a mythopoetic level that he would understand. And by going to that bridge, that thing that, connects one side of the realm to the other, and that duck just kept on going. And then we turned around. It's a pretty profound moment in a lot of ways. I don't know if this book is still in circulation. You may be able to pick up a copy somewhere. But if you're interested in American literature, poetry, semiotics, American culture, kind of the exploration of the spoken word, Cleveland, Ohio, Kent State, Devo. And this book is a commitment. It's thick, right? But I've been saving Kenneth's chart. This is the chart that we would work. I've had this chart in my files since maybe 2014. I've had this chart for 10 years. And I've been waiting for the time where I could actually talk about it to people. And today is that day. So, Kenneth, wherever you are, I hope your existence is just as poetic as it was while you were here. All right. That brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for being here. I gotta wrestle up some content for the other show. I think we're going to talk about Red Note. Red Note has got my attention, and it took me until about 7:30 to figure out what I was going to talk about. So hang in there. You know where Rumble is. I'll be putting together the show very quickly, and I'll have some links here. Thank you very much. Shatari, you're the best. Treat each other well. Mods, thank you for your time and service. God bless. Love to each and every one of you. Bye for now.